Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. You're tuning into End2End. I'm your host, Stephen Tomlin, with my co-host, Christian Palacrusis.
Great to be here.
Today we're going to be talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and their concerns going into the offseason, what they're going to do with all their UFAs and their RFAs, and if they're going to do anything on draft night and also signing free agents this offseason.
First off, I think the one player that we all know that needs to be signed right away is Mitch Marner, right?
For sure, but there's also the leading cast with also Kasperi Kapanen and Andreas Johnsson.
Of course, but they're not worth as much as Mitch Marner.
No, Mitch Marner is going to be asking for about, I would say, 10 to 12 and a half, I would say.
I'd give him what he asks for. In my opinion, I'd give him exactly what he asks for.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. He is a lifetime Leaf. They've said it before, and they're going to continue to say it. He loves this city. He will always love this city.
Born and raised here.
He is a classic Leaf, in my opinion. I feel as though he is the best player on the team right now. As is, right now, who would you say is better?
Definitely, I would give that to Tavares. I would say
right now performing though.
I'd 100% give it to Tavares.
Oh yeah, true. Other than Tavares, I'd say Marner.
Yeah,
Matthews
for
does
sure.
not compare right now, in my opinion.
Well, it's just the thing about Matthews is last year he didn't really step it up in the playoffs, and that's where you really need players to step up, and that's where you see the greatness out of every player. And when Matthews does throughout the season, when he gives up or he scores over 35 goals, has over 60 points, and then he goes to the playoffs like last season and he doesn't perform. He gets maybe 1 goal out of 7 games, which is not what you want out of a superstar that you're going to be paying a lot of money. No. But this year he did play maybe not to start the series, but he did well finishing it. Maybe not Game 7, but he did really well to finish that.
I actually feel as though he started the series better than he finished it.
For sure.
You're talking about Matthews?
Matthews.
Yeah, Matthews definitely started the series much better than he finished it. Game 7, once again, unfortunately, he was obviously
missing in
action, as if he only played 13 shifts the whole game, which is absolutely insane to me.
But that's just coaching problems, which is also another thing on Dubas. What he has to look at is Babcock really the coach to bring them to the promised land? Is he really the coach? He did it for the Red Wings, but it's not that era anymore. He coaches as a nitty-gritty type guy. He's
stubborn is what he is.
But he wants the fourth line guys out there facing off against the first line of their the best players on the other team to get under their skin and cause penalties and all that. But he doesn't.
We don't have those players anymore. We used to have one of them by the names of Matt Martin, but we traded him away.
Yeah, and you also had Kadri, but
Kadri is just a suspension machine, in my opinion.
But now you could see how much he really matters to the Leafs.
Yep.
Without him, it's like missing he's just missing a puzzle piece for a full puzzle. Mm-hmm. There's no if you get rid of him, you have nobody that would be doing that. You have Muzzin, and Muzzin will be gone next year.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to sign if they bring back Marner on how much everyone is saying 10 to 12.5 something like that, and then bring up Kapanen and Johnsson with losing all. Even if they lose all their UFAs, they have to trade someone to give them all their money that they need. Everyone's saying they're going to end up trading Patrick Marleau, but I looked into it and I think Patrick Marleau has a no trade clause unless he wants to be moved.
Yeah, he does have a no-trade clause. So if he wants to get traded, they'll trade him. But if he doesn't want to get traded, they can't trade him.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's tough for the Leafs because it doesn't give them as much wiggle room anymore for cap space.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he is a great player, and he is that piece of the puzzle that gives the team a little bit more depth and age, in my opinion. They need someone to, as a father figure. And honestly, as of looking at social media and just in generally looking at the NHL network in general, you can tell that Mitch Marner and Matthews have grown. They've definitely allowed Marleau to grow on them for sure. They're definitely really good friends, and I feel as though it helps the team immensely. He's still don't get me wrong now. About how great he used to be, he was amazing, right? Mm-hmm. He was a great player, but it's not like he's terrible now. He is still an extremely fast NHL hockey player. For his age, he's extremely fast. Players at his age don't even have half the speed he has. He beats guys half his age to the puck. That blows my mind. I've always thought he's fast. People have said he's been slowed down. Of course, because now he's what? 37? Like, obviously, of course he's going to be slower now, but at the same time, he's still not slow for his age. He's extremely fast for a 37-year-old.
Yeah. And also, like, Marleau definitely has a role. Like, he definitely sculpted some of, or, like, at least quarter of, he's shown Marner, he showed Matthews the way of how to, like, perform in the NHL and how to, like, be, like, the best player they can be on and off the ice, which is what you want if they're gonna end up being superstars. You want a veteran to come in and show that.
For sure.
But since he has a no trade clause, and to my knowledge, I'm gonna guess he does not want to move, because why would he? To be honest,
I don't think he would. Why would you move him?
Yeah, there's no
in my
point.
opinion. What's wrong with him? What has he done wrong?
I mean, the only problem is the money.
The money.
$6.25
Other than that,
$6.25 million.
That's a lot, though, for what he provides to the team. Don't get me wrong; he's a great player, but for $6.25, you said?
Yeah.
You can get like 3 players around Kapanen's level for him.
Maybe not.
2. Well, Kapanen, how much is Kapanen asking for?
Kapanen's going to ask for at least, looking at what Nylander got, because now people are saying Kapanen's better than Nylander.
Well, I believe he is.
I don't. I still don't. But
really?
I still think Nylander is a good player. And people are saying that they're going to trading Nylander to make money, to make cap room to sign all these RFAs. I don't understand why they would ever do that. I've heard mix of Nylander going to the Predators for PK Subban. I've heard there's many different rumors going around about Nylander, but I don't think they'll move him just because of he's what, 22, and if you trade him, it'll be the biggest regret ever as a general manager to do something like that. I've been thinking, the Leafs, if you can name one play, I'm talking to Christian here, if you can name one player that Toronto has traded away and not succeeded with another team, like played better than they have in Toronto.
With another team. I can name so many right now.
No, but they played bad with Toronto and then played even worse with another team.
Oh, no. I can't.
I can only name one, and that's Luke Schenn.
Luke Schenn? Okay. Yeah, that's good. I can name at least 5 players right now that have played better on another team and didn't play well here.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Bozak, Komarov.
Yeah.
Who's the other? Kessel. That's 3 right there. Oh my God.
Alex Steen. He was really good. And also
James Van Riemsdyk. He's playing great in Philadelphia.
Yeah. The only thing that happened with him is this season he was out with an injury, but like he's a key player for them.
Bozak didn't play bad in Toronto. He's just playing better in St. Louis.
Yeah, exactly.
Van Riemsdyk played well here, but he's playing even better in Philadelphia, in my opinion. Like, that's 4 players right there. I can name more. I just don't have a list with me right now, but like those players right there are the ones that stand out in my opinion, like more than any.
Yeah. Like, there's been some questionable moves with the franchise and all that.
Every franchise has them, but ours are... I mean, not ours. This organization, this hometown team, has definitely had their fair share of them.
Yeah, and I think, like, the fans are in high demand now of a playoff team, and especially being bounced out now twice in 2 years by the same team, the Bruins. It was good to see from my point, but now I'm looking on the Toronto side, and... Obviously, you're not gonna like being bounced by a division rival, and especially by an original 6 rival.
We were so close.
Yeah.
Last episode we talked and we had our predictions, and obviously you predicted right with that one.
Yeah.
It went to 7. Did I say we were gonna win in 7? And you said you
seven.
guys were gonna win in game 7, and it ended up going. It could that series you couldn't split it by a hair. Honestly, it was close all the way up until the very end. But I had a feeling if this game went to 7, everyone was like, "It's fine. We'll beat them at home. Every single game so far has gone 1-for-1. So if it continues that way, we should be fine." And I said, Game 7 is a different animal in itself. It doesn't matter if you've lost if you lost the first 3 and won the next 3 straight, and then you're gonna be gassed out. No, you're not, because it's Game 7. You could end up going 4 straight. Mm-hmm. They won Game 6, and then they won Game 7 as well. Like, Toronto's an immature team still, so you have to use that to their to their disadvantage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also there's still huge. Now they're also saying, I would say if I was the GM, if I was Kyle Dubas, I would think, okay, we've had our problems, not in the regular season much, but in the playoffs. Who can I bring in to push us through this first round, which will most likely be playing the Bruins, Tampa, and if we fall out of a wild card, we'll probably be playing Pittsburgh or the Capitals as the number 1 seed in the Metro. Who can push me over? And I would be thinking, okay, how many players in this free agency pool? How many have won a Stanley Cup or at least made it to the Stanley Cup Finals? And they can bring that knowledge and show these young players how to push them over the edge, at least into the second round. Because Toronto fans are in high demand right now.
We need that second round showing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've talked to so many people at school that said, I don't care if we get swept by Columbus. If we win tonight, that's all I ask for this team. As long as they just make a second round appearance. If I look at a playoff bracket and it shows Toronto in the second round, that means we defeated an NHL team in the playoffs, which we haven't been able to do in 5 years.
15 now.
15.
They have never been to the second round in 15 years now, and that just shows Toronto's like a high hockey.
They're definitely a playoff team now. Right?
100% they're a contender, but I do think
they're not there yet.
They run out of gas right near the end, and it's just. You can't really do much about that. Like, if your players don't show up, it's not like the players didn't actually show up. I think if Babcock coached properly, how
and gave Matthews the right amount of ice time, I feel like his input into the game is not enough for him to maximize his output, if you know what I mean by that. If he's not shooting enough at the net, if he's not skating enough with the puck, how is he going to be able to provide for the team as much? Do you know what I mean? That's what I've always thought with him.
Yeah, I think that too, and I think Matthews is always a force to be reckoned with when he's on the ice. But if he's being not played and Frederick Gauthier is being played more minutes, which is the fourth line center for the Leafs, and he's very slow, not as fast as Matthews, not as good of a shot as Matthews, I do think that it's a problem, obviously. And
for sure.
The problem with Babcock is he just tried to keep matching lines. You know, he kept looking for the...
At some point, like, we were getting matched by the fourth line.
No, the fourth
line was matching our first line at one point, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that Achari's line was facing off against Tavares' line, which, in my opinion, Achari's line played better in Game 5 when they started matching the fourth line with the first line.
Yeah, and that's what they did. That's what the Leafs, they started to play the Frederick Gauthier line, with playing against the Bruins top line of Bergeron, Marchand, and it changed a lot during the series, but majority of the time it was Danton Heinen on their first line. But every time they were on the ice, that fourth line would follow them and try to, like, back then it would be a lot different. The fourth line would try to get underneath the first line skin and get penalties and all that. But now it's just not that day and age, and Babcock needs to realize this. The reason that the Leafs brought him in for such an immense amount of money, 8 years, $50 million for Mike Babcock, and he can't even push them over the edge. He needs to realize that he needs to switch something.
But I don't feel as though it's a firing. He's not. The one thing
I think he's got one more chance.
The one thing Toronto fans need to realize is that he cannot be fired. You can't just fire a coach that has had a couple bad spills. Do you know what I mean? It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
They haven't made it past the first round, but they've been getting better every year. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting better every single year, then there's no point. There's no problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And if they're getting better, then obviously then you see improvement and all that, and you see them jumping over getting out of the first line, or the first round, sorry, and you see them pushing. Like, nobody saw this Columbus team taking off, really. And
no, I thought they were going to get swept. I'm going to be honest with you.
So did everyone had Tampa winning. And now they're playing really well. Right now it's 2-2 with the Bruins, which is still a good fight. But nobody sees. Sometimes teams do that. Sometimes teams, they just jump. Like this year, there's been so many underdogs taking over. Like Dallas won their series against Nashville. Colorado beat Calgary in 5 games.
I can't believe that.
That's
They won
nuts.
the first one, and then they went 4 straight.
Yeah, and then there's also the Blues playing against Winnipeg and beating them, which that was a 50-50, I would say.
The Blues?
Yeah.
I honestly think the Blues deserved that game. I mean, that series more than the Winnipeg. I'm glad that
For
the
sure,
Blues
for
won
sure.
that series. I have the Blues winning the Cup, and I'm still alive for that. Who do you have winning the Cup?
The Bruins.
Okay,
Hate to be
so
that
you're-
biased, but
so
yes.
You're still alive too, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? But I have St. Louis winning the Cup, and I honestly do think if they can beat Dallas tonight, then
It's 2-2 in that series.
yeah, it's 2-2
right now.
in that series. They did lose pretty badly. No, 4-2 they lost last game. That's not bad. Every series is tied at 2, except for the 3-0 series with Carolina, which, let's be all real, Carolina's winning that series. I don't care what anyone says.
It's already
Carolina,
3-0,
It's
so.
3-0. Like, there's been times in the past where you never know what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And you never really do. But, like, let's break this down for a quick sec. It's 3-0. There's no way that, like, there's no lee room now, any wiggle room for.
Yeah, their back's against
for
the wall, for
you
sure.
cannot lose any more games. You have 4 more games to play, right?
Yeah.
You can't lose any of those 4 games. That is tough as it is in the regular season, and they're going back and forth from Carolina to New York now, right? Because they're in Carolina now, right?
Yeah.
For Game 4, that's tough as it is. If they end up squeezing that one out and winning in Carolina, that's going to be good. Then they're going to
Gets the
go.
momentum
We're
into
going to
Game
go
5.
1 back into New York, and that will be their easiest game to win if they end up winning. Okay, now 3-2, right? Okay, 3-3, back in Carolina again, and then back in New York for Game. Like, those are 2 tough games in Carolina, and I don't see it happening. So I honestly do see Carolina making the Stanley Cup semifinals, which that's insane to me.
Yeah, I know.
I can't believe that.
Also, with going back on Toronto, it was also that too. Like they kind of.
Sorry, we kind of went off topic there for a quick sec, but
Yeah, it's all good.
we're okay for time. All right. Yeah.
So we, like with the Boston series for Toronto, I do think, Toronto did have a little bit like they had a chance to close it out, in their building in Game 6, and they fell apart.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
and that's-
that was the game. I told my parents, sorry to cut you off real quick, but I told my parents, if they don't win tonight, they're not winning this series. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? And I'm like, they need to win tonight. Their game plan should have been urgency right from the start to win that game, because that was probably one of the easiest games they could have won all series.
Yeah, for sure.
And they
blew it.
But if you watched the game, I know you're focusing more on Boston during that game, but if you watched Toronto, they were not hungry. They had their little bit of insurance.
How many
because they
shots
knew.
did they have?
Oh,
Like 26?
20, low 20s actually. And Boston had 40,
Yeah.
40 something. They were
And that's the
over
battle
them.
to stay in.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You really need to pounce on team. The thing with Boston and Toronto is that every single time, this was the story of this series, every single time Toronto had a little bit of breathing room, you thought that something great was going to happen. Toronto was going to... Boston is just there to just take it away from you real quick.
Yeah.
Just like with this series. It was 2-1 last night in the series before Boston won. Columbus, right?
Yeah.
Columbus has this chance to take this series over if they win tonight, right? Because 3-1 is a tough battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you know you've already won once, but you got to do that.
3 more times.
Because I feel as though Now, hear me out for a sec. I feel as though a 3-1 series lead is tougher to come back to from a 3-0 series lead. Now,
No way.
Listen,
No way.
listen. It's tougher because this is why. You know how tough it was to win that game, and now you realize that you need to do that 3 more times to win the series. With a series that you haven't won a game yet, you don't know how difficult it's going to be until it's done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you don't know how you've been working so hard for these games and you've just been losing. You've lost 3 straight and you've tried so hard in every single game. And now you have to push even harder to win 4 straight. You got to push. So you're playing, let's just say everyone on the team's playing 95% and they're losing. They've lost 3 straight. Then they have to push. Everyone has to be 100 and 110% to battle back and win 4 straight. It's not 3 games. It's 4 straight games without that's without overtime as well. Overtime it could be like a little bounce in and it goes in and that goes your series.
Exactly. I feel like there's a valid point to mine as well, though. If you think about it, I feel as though if they knew they won 1 game already, it gives them momentum. But at the same time, they know that it took them that much to win just a game, and nothing less can be exerted to win the rest of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I feel as though it may discourage some of them.
The biggest question for the Leafs fans, I do think, is if they're going to be trading key players for salary, obviously, but they're also looking at losing 4 defensemen, a goalie, and a pretty good forward of them. They're losing Gardner, Ron Hainsey, Ozneganov. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he was a 7th defenseman. He wasn't the greatest. And same with Martin Marincin. And they're losing Tyler Ennis and Michael Hutchison. So, first of all, you're losing your backup and you're bringing in Garrett Sparks, which that's not a backup if you ask me. That's an AHL starter.
Garrett Sparks is not a backup.
Yeah.
I miss McElhaney.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And he has a chance of winning that tonight.
Oh, my God.
So you're also losing.
That's another person.
Yeah.
That's the one I was trying to think of. I'm sorry for interrupting you again.
That's okay.
But that's the other one that I was thinking about. At least 5. I said 5. McElhaney. He's playing so much better in Carolina than he did in Toronto.
Yeah, because
Toronto doesn't deserve him now. I'm sorry. You know how much his trade value is going up as a backup goalie, fringe starter? No, I don't think he's a fringe yet. He's still a backup, but he's old. That's the thing.
Yeah,
he's older. What is he, like 32?
35.
Oh, he's 35.
Yeah, he's much older.
Oh, okay. So maybe not a starter, but he made the NHL. That's a great accomplishment for any goalie because it's so much. Just making the NHL. I know, going off topic real quick again, but just making the NHL is tough enough. Making it as a goalie is even harder because there's so many less spots. There's only 30 spots.
Actually, 60 with the backup.
To make a starting position, I meant. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
To make a starting position, 30 spots, right?
Yeah.
In the NHL, to make it a roster for a player, you got to do 30 times by 23. Or sorry, 20, because there's 3 goalies in total, right? Mm-hmm. There's a backup, there's the starter, and then there's a reserved one? Or
No, it's AHL starter.
So 21. There's 21 skaters that are players. Times that by 30, because there's 30 teams. That's so many more players that you have to choose from than just 30 goalies. You need to stand out like crazy. And for him to do that, honestly, I feel like Toronto just looked at age and not what was working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They were fine for backups. And then I'm not saying that some of the games we lost in the regular season were because of Sparks, but I'm saying it at the same time. Literally, if I knew, I'm saying it straight up, if we had Anderson in net, some of those games we would have won. 100%. We would have won. It's just pure lack of skill. And there's nothing don't get me wrong, Sparks is a great guy. He's a great goalie, but he's not that great yet. Do you know what I mean? He will be great soon, hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, a lot of goalies they take a lot of time to blossom. You could look at Cam Talbot like that. He started playing well when he turned, I think it was 28, 29. You could also look at Bennington, a rookie coming in.
Ben Winnington. He took time in the AHL to blossom, but nothing in the NHL. This is his first year in the NHL, and he's already looking at the what's the award called again?
The Calder.
The Calder, yeah. I was gonna say that.
But you would think, he's probably what? He's probably 20 years old.
He's 20.
No, he's 25. 25 years old, a rookie.
He is 25 because he played in the AHL, right? For the Admirals.
Yeah.
Because of the backup goalie. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I do think I do think they did miss. They missed the ball there. They definitely missed a big, like at least like a good goalie to have instead of Garrett Sparks. I do think even Calvin Picard, they had him. They also waived him. But the reason McElhinney's been doing so well with Carolina is Carolina has their goalie coach is the goalie coach that took care of Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh. And Rod Brendamore, when he came in, he told the GM of Carolina, he said, I want to have a good goalie coach. And they brought him in, and he's been very good. He's relightened Peter Mrazek's career, which was kind of he had a really good start with Detroit and kind of fell apart with them as well. And then they ended up trading him away. I do think it's partially the goalie coach. They've been splitting games, I think, all year. But Mrazek's obviously the clear starter. But McElhinney has definitely been a great addition for Carolina. Definitely pushed them to the playoff contention that they're in right now. Going back to Toronto, though, I do think that they will be looking at trading some of their key players to bring back Marner and bringing back Marner. They're bringing back Kapanen and Johnsson. They have to.
They have to bring back Johnsson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If they don't, then that's just insane in my opinion.
But if they don't, they also get picks for next year.
I feel as though Johnsson is a great player that can offer us a lot of depth because with his presence, that he offers the team speed. Like always, we have a lot of speed already. But he's a player that kind of came out of nowhere. He just started playing really good.
Trevor Moore. Trevor Moore came out of nowhere. AHL, and now he's
Trevor Moore. Honestly, he's a
fan favorite right now because of how he did in the playoffs.
It's like with the NHL, you have a good game, and now all the spotlight's on you, and now your salary can go from 1 year a rookie $900K salary to like $5 million in a year because of how a player plays. Their confidence is big, and right now I feel the one that has the least confidence on that whole team is the Nylander situation. That's why he has no trade value anymore. I'm sorry, I feel as though we're gonna get nothing for him.
And so. Yeah, I do think Nylander is definitely a worrisome. He's very worrying for Toronto, just because I feel like he doesn't think there's a lot of trust in Toronto. I think he's like, wow, they're just gonna, like, he got his contract that he wanted, but he also waited and he missed half the season for it. Mm-hmm. So I do think that there's a little bit of like He's got that in the back of his mind, remembering that they did that. You could see that during the series with Boston. He's kind of not there. He's kind of not really doing much. He scored, I think, 1 or 2 goals, but that's about it. But I don't think they deal Nylander because, again, he's 22, and you can't trade someone like that. He's going to turn into he has the potential to turn into, if you trade him, he's going to turn into like Tarasenko. He will turn into someone really lights out. And I do think they won't do that. I have a feeling that they will be looking to trade. They're losing roughly, I would say they're losing about $10 million in cap right now. Maybe a little bit less. Maybe like 7 or maybe 8. Because of Gardner, Hainsey, and the rest of them that's leaving, and I do believe that mostly that money is going to end up going to Johnsson and Kapanen. They're going to split that, but then they're going to have to make up $10 million for for Marner, and I think that money is going to have to end up, to be honest, coming from someone from the forwards. They're not going to buy out Marleau. There's no way they will do that.
No.
And I do believe that Kadri has seen like. They're getting kind of very on the last edge with him just because of these dumb penalties that he's been doing, and he's kind of been thinking about himself more than the team. He's been like, oh, I want to make the big hits and all that, but they wouldn't need the big hits. I think if Kadri was in the lineup for the last games, for the last he was suspended game 3 or game 2.
Game 2.
If he was in, say like he missed game 3 and he was back in the lineup for the rest of them, I think that series is completely different, and I do think Toronto might actually end up coming up on top. But I mean, I do think he's now on his last legs here in Toronto. I do think that they might end up dealing him. I also you wouldn't know who else they could trade. Their forwards are kind of all over the place, really. They have young players, so it's like, why would you want to trade them?
Really high, skilled, high-paid players, which it's not very even throughout everyone.
Yeah.
It's very sporadic.
And also, I would say they're looking to deal one of their defensemen, and I'm going to say it's going to probably be looking for Zaitsev, or it's going to be Muzzin. And I don't think it'll be Muzzin, because they brought him in at the deadline, and they paid so much for him. And I don't think there's no point of that. I think they'll end up trying to trade Zaitsev, even though he did do well in the playoffs. He did. I do think they'll end up trying to move him, just because of his steep salary. He's got 4.8 over the next, I think it's 2 years, which is pretty steep. But just because of how good he is, he's not the greatest of a defenseman. Mm-hmm. But still, he's a good defenseman. He played very well with drawing a blank, Muzzin, and he you kind of want to keep that, but they were trying to hit a home run when they signed Zaitsev out of the KHL, mm-hmm. and they kind of just struck out. They really missed the ball on that one, and it's kind of coming back to bite them now, because $4.8 million isn't going to go to Marner. It's going to end up going to Zaitsev, and who knows, if they don't sign Marner, he could be an RFA, and I'm 100% sure that a team would gladly offer 2 first-round picks and a second for Marner. I would. If I was a general manager, Marner is a sensation.
Marner is a fan favorite. I'm telling you right now, at least 85% of Toronto will choose Marner as their favorite player.
For sure, and I do think Mitch Marner, he wants to stay, but he also wants 100%. He wants to stay for the money, for some of it is there's money in the back. You need to have money.
He wants to stay because he wants to stay. This guy it loves this town. He loves this team. I don't think it's because of the money. I think he could care less about the money, in my opinion.
I definitely say the money. They would have reached an agreement already with Marner if it wasn't about the money.
Contracts take long, though. That's the thing. It's not always his say. Well, it's his say, but it's not always his wants to go with how long this will take.
Yeah. But I do think that the money is a big thing for players. Obviously, why would I want to go and play for if I could be making what he's going to be making, $10 to $12.5 million? If I can make that and I'm only making three and a half, then obviously I'm okay, then I'm gonna stop enjoying sport. I'm not gonna be like, oh, okay, well, my talent isn't really wanted here if I'm gonna be being paid only $3 million if I'm worth this much. There's obviously Toronto wants Marner. Everyone wants to keep Marner, but what's the extent here? Because you're gonna have to lose a player, and I do think it's gonna end up being Kadri and Zaitsev, and that closely equals out to about 9.5, or that equals to about 10.25 roughly, and I do think he'll be asking for that and then some. I think he'll be rather just under Matthew or just over Matthews, but only time will tell. I know at the draft they don't have any picks because they traded that for Muzzin, mm-hmm. which I don't think it was that smart of a move, obviously, but.
Muzzin, I feel as though it was a bit of a last-minute ditch effort.
Yeah, I do think
I don't think it was anything that was needed at the time. I mean, they needed some big body. Don't get me wrong. Who did they move away from for? They need a guy to hit. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And who did they get rid of for Muzzin? Was it Ozhiganov?
No,
was it Borgson?
No, they got rid of. You mean who did they send down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Ozhiganov. And he's a big body that you have on the defense, but he's not good enough. I think they won't be signing him this offseason, and I think he'll be returning to the KHL. But I also think that there's going to be major holes no matter what on this defense. They did what Eugene Melnyk, not to reinstate what he said during the season, but yeah. I do kind of agree with him on they definitely missed the ball on defense. They missed drafting defensemen, and you saw that when people were saying that they should have drafted Zach Werenski instead of Marner or Nylander, and people were saying they also should have drafted Hanifin over Marner when the draft was going on.
Nope.
Obviously, that was a wrong input to have because Marner is now lighting it up, and Hanifin's kind of still on his still trying
on
to
his back, still trying to get up.
No, he's
On
trying
his
to
knees, I guess he's kind of walking. He's crawling.
he's trying to repiece his career with Calgary, and I do think they need to sign Marner for sure.
Oh yeah.
And you guys, let us know in the comments. Actually,
Yeah.
How much do you think Marner will be asking for? I say it'll be
Anywhere from 10 to 13.
Yeah, 10 to 12.75. That's what I'm saying. He's getting 11.
11.
And same with Tavares, right? Or is he getting more?
Tavares is getting 13.
Holy, that's crazy. The salary cap is supposed to go up this offseason. It's going to be jumping up to $83 million.
Wait, did he get 11?
I think he did. Yeah.
Maybe he did get 11.
But the good thing is that the salary cap is going up this offseason. It's going to be jumping up $3.5 million from $79.5 million to $83 now, which is still gives a little bit more breathing room for the Leafs, but not enough. Obviously, they're back against the wall with the Marner deal, the Kapanen deal, and the Janssen deal. Let us know what you think the Leafs will be doing this offseason, because there's a lot of question marks on that. We could even look at their blue line. Their blue line, a lot of question marks there too, because they'll be losing Gardner, Hainsey, which are two key defensemen that they have, but they also have two good defenseman prospects coming up, which is they have Liljegren and they also have Rasmus Sandin. And I don't think they're ready yet, but I do think they're close, and I think they can step in soon. But now we can, I do think the Leafs are in still a playoff contention after, no matter what they do this offseason. I think they're still a playoff team. But it's just what happens when there's salary cap. Mm-hmm. when you don't have salary cap.
Life isn't perfect.
Yeah.
You have to deal with something, and someone's going to have to go. We know this, maybe more.
Yeah.
It's going to probably be at least two people that are going to need to go
to
sign everyone, to keep them in. Really, the thing is, it sucks to let people go, because now the facade is over. Oh, we have all these players. Now it's going to start looking like an actual NHL team with players that are not so good, with players that are really good. It's not just a strong powerhouse young team that doesn't know how to play with each other yet. Mm-hmm. It's a team that will now build and become a core, because now they're set in. They're locked in after this year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before, they're making rookie contracts, making the playoffs, going on great winning streaks. Yes, having their downfalls in the playoffs, but they had insane talent throughout the whole team, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now it's gonna start looking a little bit more like an actual NHL team. Because now, the day that every Leafs fan is dreading is coming.
Yeah, for sure. Just to let us know what you guys think in the comments, for sure.
Yep, for sure. Let us know what you think, who should go, and what each RFA should be signed for, if they get signed. If you think they shouldn't get signed.
But yeah, also follow us on Instagram. We have an Instagram. We're trying to post more on that.
Yep.
The Instagram is End2, which is the number 2,
yep.
End.podcast.
That's End2 with number 2 dot pod. End2End podcast.
Yeah.
With a dot in between the end and the podcast.
Yeah. If you guys follow us, we're going to be letting you guys know when each podcast is posted.
Make sure to DM us on Instagram for any topics that you'd like to see in the future. One that's certainly going to be coming up to keep you guys on your radar for is the draft, which is a big one. Steven's very excited for this one.
Extremely
excited for this one.
Been setting it up for about a month now, and I think it's pretty perfect.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be, I think it's going to be around the absolute max we can go for this one.
Yeah.
45-minute mark, maybe even an hour. Mm-hmm. We'll do 2 parts of that, so we'll cut them into half-an-hour parts each, because we can't post anything that's more than 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. But if we have more content, we're going to go past 45 minutes, past maybe an hour. We'll give you guys as much as you possibly need to cover everything. But make sure to like and subscribe, and also make sure to follow us on Instagram. We've stated it already, but make sure to DM us topics for the off-season, because the off-season's a bit dry at times. We want to know what you guys want to hear throughout the off-season. It is a bit of a more quiet time for the NHL, so let us know. Maybe we'll throw in a couple different types of games, maybe throughout the podcast, keep it interesting.
Yeah.
What would a fantasy team maybe we make from rookies that have been drafted this year, something like that.
Yeah,
Just keep it interesting. But that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching, guys.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys.
Take care. Bye.